My name is Joe, and this is Yoga Inspired Back Love for people who aren't that much into yoga. So if that's you, you're in the right place. Go ahead, take a moment here. Just come to standing. Open your feet a comfortable distance width apart. Might be hip distance, might be a little bit wider. And then shift the weight forward and back in your feet. Eventually coming to the place where your weight feels pretty centered between the front and the back of your feet, and wiggle your toes. Then from here, inhale, lift your toes up. And I know we're talking about feet a lot here, but we're building from ground up. You'll notice when you lift the toes up, the arches of the feet lift up too. Exhale and release. You want that to happen. Inhale, lift your toes up, trying to pull up through the arches of your feet too. Exhale and release. Inhale, lift your toes in the arches. Keep them lifting. Feel the leg muscles hugging into the bone, so leg muscles nice and strong, but the knee joint soft. Feel the muscles of the hips hugging in, including muscles of the pelvic floor lifting in and up. Feel the low ribs hugging in and up. Feel the hands together in front of the heart. Feel the shoulders together on the back, and just stack your head and neck above the rest of the spine. Then spread the toes nice and wide apart here, and trying to keep this hugging in, this engagement, lower the toes down to the ground. Breathe. So first, just standing up nice and tall. And then exhale, release. Shake this all out. And if you're on a mat, you can face the narrow end. And again, you're going to take a moment, line your feet up with each other, a comfortable distance apart. Knees facing generally forward. They don't have to be perfectly forward. Second, toes facing generally forward. And again, just as much as works for your body. Wiggle your toes. Inhale, lift your toes up. Feel the arches of the feet engaging. Connect down through any part of your foot that's not an arch. Feel the leg muscles hugging to the bone, but the knee joint soft. Feel the muscles around the hips hugging in, including pelvic floor lifting in and up. And then feel the low ribs hugging in and up. Feel the hands on your hips this time. Spread the toes nice and wide apart. Lower the toes down to the ground. And then bend your knees just a little bit more here so you can move your hips. So from here, we're going to exhale. We're going to tuck our hips under. And inhale and tilt the hips back. Only as much as feels good for you in both directions. So exhale, tuck the hips under. Inhale, tilt the hips back. Exhale, tuck the hips under. Inhale and tilt the hips back. And then come to standing up here. Now here with the legs a little bit straighter, bring the hands to the tops of the thighs right below the hips. Press the thighs back. Lean a little bit forward with the hips. So you're tilting the hips back, but you're leaning your whole torso forward this time with it. Keep the thighs pressing back. Lengthen the spine nice and long out of the hips here. And then keep the thighs pressing back, but move the back of your hips forward to meet it, to come back up to standing. So you're not tucking under. You're not pushing things forward, because the thighs are being the boundary, the barrier. And then go ahead. Again, lean a little bit forward. Thighs press back. Be careful of your knee joints, though. Keep the knee joints a little bit soft as the thighs press back. And then inhale, moving the hips forward to meet the thighs, not overriding, but just meeting. One more time. Inhale, lean a little bit forward. Feel the thighs pressing back, lengthen the spine out of the hips. And then exhale, move the hips forward to meet the thighs. Breathing here, standing up nice and tall, hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Feel the breath moving through you. Exhale, release the hands to the sides, knees as wide apart as your feet. This time when you bend the knees, act like you're sitting back in a chair. You can lift the arms up however much feels good for you. And then inhale back up to standing. So a form of a squat. We call this Utkatasana. Go ahead, bend the knees track towards your second toes in this particular squat, and you act like you're gonna sit back in a chair. And then go ahead and come back up to standing. Inhale, Utkatasana, bend the knees, only as much as feels good for you. Exhale your hands to your knees, and then with your hands on the knees, stretch the spine nice and long out of the hips here. And then if it works for you, you can exhale and round the back a little bit here, tucking the tailbone under. Inhale, untuck the tailbone and lengthen the spine. Exhale and round the back a little bit here. Inhale, untuck, lengthen the spine. One more time, exhale, round the back, tucking the tailbone under if that works for you. Inhale, untuck the tailbone, stretch the spine nice and long. Keep the spine lengthening out of the hips. Lower your hands to right below your knees on the outside of your legs, your outer shins. And then lift your toes up again to power up the legs a little bit more, the arches a little bit more. With your hands, you're going to press the shins in towards each other, but your knees are not going to fall in because you're going to press the upper inner thighs apart, and then you're going to stretch the spine nice and long out of the hips here. Then with your shins pressing in, the upper inner thighs pressing apart to widen out the low back, you're going to inhale and straighten the legs only as much as feels good for you, and then exhale and bend the knees as wide apart as your feet. Inhale and straightening the legs. Exhale and bend the knees. Inhale and straighten the legs. Shins hugging in, thighs pressing out. Inhale, stretch the spine nice and long. And then exhale and gently fold forward over the legs, only as much as feels good for you. Inhale and lengthen. Shins are still hugging in, thighs still pressing out. Exhale and fold. Inhale and lengthen. Hold this nice extended spine. Bring your hands to your hips. Shins are still hugging in, thighs are still pressing out. You can lower the toes down to the ground, though, if you can keep the legs working and active. And then with a nice long spine, come all the way out to standing. Exhale, just release the hands to the side. Soften a little bit, shake a little bit, move a little bit, do some shoulder rolls. We're working a lot. And then coming up to standing. So again, activate the lower legs. Lift your toes up. Wake up to the arches. Feel the shins hugging in. Feel the upper inner thighs pressing apart. And then here, go ahead. Feel the shins right below the knees pressing forward a little bit. So your knees bend a little bit. But then the upper inner thighs press back. Your thighs pressing back. Let the hips move forward to meet your... Let your hips move forward to meet your thighs without overriding. So hips just meet the thighs. And then from here, from your hips, root down into the earth. You can lower the toes to the ground, but stay nice and active. And then with your next inhale, the arms come wide and reach all the way up to the sky. Exhale, lower the arms to the sides. Inhale, arms come wide and reach up high, legs nice and powerful and strong. Exhale, lower the arms to the sides. Inhale, arms come wide and reach up high. Left hand can grab right wrist. Exhale, leaning over to your left. Inhale and up to center, right hand, left wrist. Exhale to the right. Inhale to center. Exhale, left. Inhale, center. Exhale, right. Inhale, center. Exhale, left. Inhale, center. Exhale, right. Inhale, center. Exhale, release the hands to the sides. Knees as wide apart as your feet. Bend your knees, Utkatasana. Exhale, lower your hands to your knees. Feel the shins hugging in, the upper inner thighs pressing apart, but this time slide your hands right below the knees to the front of your shins. Press your shins into your hands a little bit, but press the thighs back. And then here, straightening the legs only as much as feels good for you, with the spine nice and long. Keep your shins pressing a little bit forward into your hands. Keep the tops of the thighs pressing back. Lengthen through the spine here. And then again from here, if you want to exhale and gently fold in, you can. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale and fold. Inhale and lengthen. Hold that nice long spine. Press down through the feet. Come all the way up to standing. Okay. Step your right foot forward, the left foot back a little bit. And just make sure you're not really crossing your left foot back behind the right. That turns your hips more towards the left side. You want your feet wide enough apart from side to side that you can face the hips generally towards the narrow end of the mat. Doesn't have to be perfectly, but generally in that direction. Then with your legs fairly straight, hug in from your feet to your hips, which may move the right hip back a little bit, left hip forward a little bit. Lengthen the spine out of the hips, and then lean just a little bit forward at the hips. Pressing again the tops of the thighs back here, but be careful not to lock the knee because your calf presses forward some. Stretch the spine nice and long. Point your right knee towards the second toe, and then exhale and bend that right knee, and inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend. If your knee bends past your ankle that much, maybe don't go that far. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend the right knee. Then lengthen the spine out of the hips here. And only if it feels okay for your hips and low back, try tilting the hips more upright so your torso comes upright and breathing here. But again, don't force that movement, only if that feels okay for you. Press down through your hips, and if you want to, you can bring the arms alongside by the ears. Breathing here, Warrior One, Virabhadrasana, one variation. And then exhale and go ahead and release, and just gently switching sides. So left foot forward, right foot back. Make sure your right foot's not crossing back behind the left. Make sure you have some width from side to side, just a comfortable distance front to back. Hands to your hips, lean a little bit forward, legs pretty straight, leaning a little bit forward, level out the hips and stretch the spine nice and long. And then here, point that left knee towards the second toe. Exhale and bend. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend. Inhale and straighten. Exhale, bend, holding here, stretching the spine nice and long, hips pretty level. Only if you want to, tilt the hips so they're more upright, more vertical. And then only if you want to, you can lift the hands up. Breathe. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then exhale, go ahead and release, and switching sides again. So right foot forward, left foot back. Hugging in from your feet to your hips, turning your hips generally forward, legs fairly straight, but again, doesn't have to be perfect. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, lean forward a little bit. Lengthen the spine out of the hips here. And then this time, we're going to keep on going, but only as far as your hips will move with your right leg fairly straight, and that you can lengthen the spine out of the hips. So adding a bit of a hamstring stretch to this equation. Breathing wherever you end up. And then in that place, you can exhale and bend that right knee, tracking the right knee towards the second toe. And then with your next inhale, tilting the hips back towards a more upright position. Again, only as much as works for you. If you want to, the hands can lift up, coming through a warrior one position. And then exhale, go ahead and release. And as you're ready, switching sides. Hugging in from your feet to your hips, turning the hips towards the skinny end of the mat. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, tilting the hips, fold forward just a little bit to start. So you're appraising, you're pausing, you're noticing how your body works. Level out the hips, stretch the spine nice and long. And if you want to keep on going, if your hips will keep on tilting, you can keep on tilting. And like I said, legs fairly straight. But if you need to bend the knee a little bit, that's fine. Bend the knee a little bit. So again, doing what modifications work for you. You do want to keep it fairly straight because I want you to feel a bit of a hamstring stretch. So I don't want you to bend it so much that you don't feel that. And then with the left knee tracking towards the second toe, you can go ahead and bend that knee. And then you can slowly play with tilting the hips back upright. And again, see how that feels for you with the hips facing generally forward. And then maybe lift the hands up. And then exhale, maybe lower the hands back down. And then go ahead and make your way back to standing. Hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back, feel the breath. Release the arms to the sides, lift your toes up, engaging the arches of the feet. Feel the lower legs, the shins hugging in, feel the upper inner thighs pressing apart. Feel right below the knees, the shins pressing forward a little bit, feel the tops of the thighs pressing back. Feel your hips moving forward to meet your thighs, but not overriding. Feel the low ribs hugging in and up, and then from here, stretch your arms up towards the sky. From the hips, actively press down into the earth. You can lower the toes down now. From the low ribs, stretching up, out through the crown of the head. Feel the breath moving through you here, just stretching your body in two different directions. And then exhale, go ahead and release. Just shake everything out. And come and face the long end of the mat. Open your legs nice and wide apart. Same actions, even with the legs wide apart. So take a moment, look at your feet. Line your feet up with each other, knees facing generally forward, second toes facing generally forward. None of this has to be perfect or exact though. You're moving in general directions. Once you're there, again, engage through the feet muscles. So you can lift your toes up. You can press down through any part of your foot that's not an arch. Feel the shins hugging in. So almost act like you're going to pull your feet in towards each other isometrically. But the upper inner thighs still move apart. So all the weight doesn't end up in the inner edge of your foot. So it doesn't feel like you're collapsing your ankles here. And then from here, again, right below the knees, the calves press forward a little bit. The shins right below the knees press forward. But the upper inner thighs press back. And then your back of your hips come forward to meet your thighs. Not override, but just to meet the thighs. Low ribs hug in and up. Hands to a T here. You can move the shoulder blades gently towards each other on the back too if you want to. And then keeping all of this, lower the toes to the ground. From the hips, root down into the earth. From the low ribs, lift up to the crown of the head. Feel the breath moving through you. And then go ahead, bring your hands to your hips. Turn your left toes towards the right ones a little bit more. The right toes all the way out to the right side. Legs are still nice and active here. Right knee points towards your second toe. Exhale and bend. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend with the right knee approximately on top of the ankle. Lower the right forearm to the right leg. Gently press the right knee to the right and gently move the left thigh back. So all the leg actions are actually still going on. I'm just having you emphasize for a moment moving the thigh back. And again, lengthen the spine out of the hips here, and then not overriding this left leg pressing back, but just moving the hips forward to meet it. Stretch the spine nice and long out of the hips here. Feel free to stay here with the shoulders gently moving towards each other on the back, or sliding the left hand, the back of your hand down the back for a little bit of a shoulder stretch. Parsvakonasana variation. Breathe. Unwinding that right hand, press down through your feet, come all the way up, soften the right knee. Left toes turn towards the right ones. Right toes turn all the way out to the right. Right toes turn in, left toes turn out. Left knee points towards your second toe. With the left knee pointing towards your second toe, exhale and bend that knee. Inhale and straighten. Exhale and bend. Left forearm onto the legs. So again, the lower shin hugs in, the upper inner thigh presses apart, the calf muscle presses forward, but this right thigh presses back, and you might lean inside the legs a little bit as you press that thigh back and press the left knee open. Keep the legs pressing back for the wall behind you, but move your hips forward to meet it without overriding, and then lengthen the spine out of the hips. And then with your spine lengthening out of the hips, shoulders gently on the back, maybe sliding that right hand down the low back. Breathing here. Nice full deep breaths. And then press down through your feet. Come all the way up. Turn all 10 toes to the long end of the mat. Again, activate through the toes, the arches of the feet. Feel the shins hugging in. Upper inner thighs pressing apart. You can lower the toes down to the ground, keeping that. Feel the calf muscles pressing forward a little bit, thighs pressing back. Feel the hips moving forward to meet it, standing up nice and tall. Hands could be in a T, shoulder blades on the back. Then bring your hands to your thighs. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, pivoting at the hips, fold a little bit forward. You might need to bend your knees a little bit more here. Eventually sliding the hands down so they're at your shins, right below the knees. And again, pressing the shins a bit into your hands. So again, calf muscles and shins press forward a little bit. And stretch the spine nice and long here. Breathe. Feel free to stay here. Or if it works for you, keep the spine lengthening, moving the hips. Keep on sliding down to wherever works for you. Breathing wherever works for you. And again, feel free to stay in this extended spine, or if you want to gently let the back round and fold in, you can. Maybe taking your hands again to the outside of your shins, and with your hands pressing your shins in, even as you press the upper inner thighs apart. Breathe. And then hands to the hips, shoulders on the back. Inhale, nice long spine all the way up to standing. With your knees soft, heel toe your feet in towards each other. Shake out the legs. And turn and face the narrow end of the mat. Lining yourself up, activating through the legs. So everything we've talked about, arches lifted, shins engaged, thighs engaged, muscles of the pelvic and the hips engaged, core engaged, standing up nice and tall. Hands together in front of the heart, shoulders together on the back. Feel the breath moving through you. Then exhale, release the hands to the side. Inhale, arms come wide and reach up high. Exhale, lower the arms back to the side. Bring the hands to the thighs. Press the thighs back a little bit. Keep your knee joints soft. Tilting the hips, start to fold forward. Slide your hands down the legs, eventually to the shins with the hands on the shins if it works for you. Lengthen the spine again here. And again, if your hips will move forward further, you can move the hips forward further. If they won't, then stay where you are. And wherever you end up, where you can lengthen the spine out of the hips, that's where you'll gently fold in if that feels good for you. And again, maybe hands to the outer shins, pressing the shins in as you press the upper inner thighs apart. Breathe. From here, we're going to try to get the hands to the ground. And so what you might need to do that is 1, bend the knees. 2, you might need to open your feet wider apart. And 3, you might need to reach for the ground out in front of you instead of right by your feet. And then once you get your hands to the ground, you're also going to walk your feet back and then make your way to all fours. So easing your way to your hands and knees, however works for you. Hand talk, just briefly here. So sometimes in all fours, the wrists bother us because all the weight ends up in them. What you want to try to do with the lines of the wrist going in general, parallel with the front edge of the mat, You want to try to almost pretend like you're going to lift the wrists up to shift the weight more into your fingers. So that's one option. Option number 2 is to walk your hands a little bit out in front of the shoulders. That just changes the angle for your wrist, so that's option 2. Option 3 is to do a different hand position. So some people like to do fists. Some people will grab weights and hold on to weights. So you can play with different hand positions too. But trying to come to some place that your wrist does not feel pain. Once you're in that place, inhale and stretch the spine nice and long. Exhale and round the back, look at your navel. Inhale and arch the back, head and tailbone up to the sky. It's just moving back and forth to the flow of the breath. And connecting this movement to the flow of the breath. And then with your next inhale, stretch the spine nice and long. Feel the low ribs hugging in. Feel the bottom tips of the shoulder blades hugging in. And stretch that left leg up back behind you. With the left leg lifted, stretching back behind you, you can stack the left hip a little bit on the right, opening your hips to the left. And then exhale, try to level the hips out, squaring the hips towards the earth. With your hips square, hugging into the core, maybe slide the right hand forward, maybe float the right hand up. And from the core hugging in, hip square, stretch back to the left foot, forward to the right hand. And then exhale, go ahead and release. When you're ready, second side. Lifting the right leg up. And again, for just a moment, maybe open your hips to the right. So maybe stack the right hip on top of the left. Maybe you'll notice that you're already doing that and you didn't realize that, which that's what you're doing. But after a moment of that, go ahead and level the hips towards the ground so the hips are square. Core engaged. Stretch back to that right leg. Feel free to keep the left hand on the ground, or you can slide the left hand forward or float the left hand up. From the core engaged, stretch back to the right foot, forward to the left hand. Breathing here, nice full deep breaths. And then exhale, release, and come into a child's pose. So if you're not used to doing yoga so much, child's pose for you might just be lowering down to your elbows and gently staying here. If this works for you. If this doesn't work for you, I'll have a talk in a moment. If you have a little bit more room to move, if this feels really good, you can bring the feet together and you can kind of move your butt back towards your feet a little bit more and the head towards the ground a little bit more. But stopping wherever works for you. And if these positions do not feel good for you at all, come just to lying on your belly. So if you have knee pain or something going on, you might just be better off lying on your stomach, and that's fine. Because we're all going to ease our way forward onto our belly now. So rest your head on your hands, gently rock the hips from side to side. And then come to center with your hips and feel your knees spinning towards the ground. Bring the hands to either side of the chest underneath the bicep. We're going to stay pretty low here, but maybe lift up a little bit through the shoulders and maybe stretch your chest forward a little bit. Press down through the hips with your hips pressing down, knees turning to face the ground. Lift the left leg up just a little bit. Stretch that left leg back for the wall behind you. As you do that, you might be pushing your hands forward some to get some more length, and then lower back down. And then inhale, right leg lifts, stretch that leg back, and lower down. Inhale, left leg lifts, stretch back through the leg. Exhale and lower. Inhale, right leg lifts, stretch back through the legs. Both hips stay on the ground. Exhale, lower. One more time each side. Left leg lifts, stretching long, and then lower. Right leg lifts and stretches long, and then lower. So through the course of this, my hips have literally walked back some. So I'm closer to the back of my mat. Just so you know, that's how active I was stretching. I'm going to readjust myself just because I did that. And then go ahead from here, rest your head on the hands, rock the hips from side to side. Come back to center with the hips. Bring the hands to either side of the chest here, fingers pointing towards toes. Again, pressing down through the hips. Inhale, float up through the shoulders, maybe the chest too. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and float up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale, float up. Hold the float up if that works for you. Stretch your chest forward. With your knees facing down, if you want to lift both feet up, you can, if that feels okay for your low back. And if you want a little bit more of a shoulder stretch, you can float up through the hands. Breathe. Nice, full, deep breaths. And then exhale, go ahead, release. Rest your head on the hands. Gently rock the hips from side to side. Come back into your version of child's pose, or again, stay laying on your belly if that's more appropriate for you. Breathing here, wherever here is. And then with your next inhale, come up to all fours. Come up to your hands and knees. Lengthen the spine nice and long here. With your hips staying level, lift that left leg up, back behind you. And then exhale the left knee into the nose, rounding the back. Inhale, lift the left leg up. Exhale, left knee into the nose. Inhale, lift the left leg up. And then exhale, trying to step the left foot towards your left hand. So you might step it forward and it may not get anywhere near your left hand. You might need to walk it over to the side. You might need to grab that foot and pull the foot forward. Do what works for you. After you do that, you might notice there might be a lot of pressure in the right knee, so you might need to fold up mat underneath that right knee. Again, do what you need to do. If this is all okay for you, walk your hands a little bit out in front of the shoulders. The left knee can turn a bit to the left toes can turn a bit to the left. Lengthen the spine nice and long out of the hips here. And just gently, maybe if it feels good for you, move the hips a bit side to side. And then come back to center with the hips here. And slide, wiggle, scoot that left foot back. All fours. Okay. Hips nice and level. As you're ready, inhale, the right leg lifts. Exhale, right knee into the nose. Inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, right knee into the nose. Inhale, right leg lifts. Trying to step that right foot forward. And again, it might take some time. It might take some wiggling and scooting. Do what you need to do. If it doesn't work for you, leave poses out. That's fine. You might want to wiggle the left knee back a little bit. You might need to pad up that knee. Walk your hands a little bit in front of the shoulders. Stretch the spine nice and long. And only if it feels good for you, move the hips a little side to side here. Breathing here. Then coming back to center with the hips here. And wiggle, scooting, sliding that right knee back. Child's pose. So just giving your hands a break. Breathe. Come forward onto your belly. Gently rock your hips from side to side. Come back to center with the hips. Press the hips down. Stretch long through the legs with the knees facing down. Bring the arms again to the sides. And again, inhale, float up through the shoulders. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale and float up. Exhale and lower back down. Inhale, float up, hold. If you want to float up through the legs, you can. If you want to this time, flip your hands forward, you can. Just acting like you're going to drag the hands back, lengthening forward to the chest. You can stay here, or you can press the hands down, letting the legs lower slowly to the ground and feeling a little bit of a lift up through the chest. And then exhale, lower all the way back down and make your way back into a child's pose. Breathe. Come up to all fours. Feel free to just do legs, but if it works for you, keeping your hips nice and level, inhale, the left leg and the right arm lifts. Exhale and lower. Inhale, right leg and left arm lifts. Exhale and lower. Inhale, left leg, right arm. Exhale and lower. Inhale, right leg, left arm. Exhale and lower. Inhale, left leg, right arm. Exhale and lower. Inhale, left leg, right arm, exhale and lower. Then straighten the left leg, but keep the toes on the ground, toes curled under. Notice where everything is. Notice where your hips are. Feel the low ribs hugging in. Feel the shoulder blades on the back. And without changing too much here, see if you can straighten the right leg too, coming into a plank. But be careful that the hips aren't sagging down. So keep the hips high. If wrist or hand plank doesn't work for your wrist, feel free to do a low plank on your elbows. What I really want you to do is just practice hugging that core in. At the same time, the shoulder blades are on the back and breathing. And then go ahead and come back into a child's pose. Nice full deep breaths. Come up to sitting with the legs forward out in front of you, knees pointing up to the sky. Hands back behind you. Press down through the legs, lift up through the low back, open through the chest, open through the throat, breathing here. Keep the legs rooting down. Start to walk your hands forward. Keep the low back lifting up so your hips don't tuck under. And if possible, with the legs straight, you're going to come up to sitting upright, bring the low back lifting up out of the hips. Now, if your hips try to tuck under here, bend your knees. So the goal, just like downward facing dog, the goal is to stretch the spine long, at least for today in class. The goal today for this pose is to lift the low back up out of the hips. So leg straight is a secondary option or endeavor. Breathe. And then when you're ready, go ahead and bend the left knee. Hugging onto that left knee, use it to sit up nice and tall, which also means that maybe your left foot isn't right by the right leg. Maybe it's wider apart so you have room to sit up nice and tall. Then we're going to twist. And when you twist, you might want to move the left foot again closer to the right leg and turn. Now, if when you twist, your back is rounding, then lean back away from the knee a little bit. Give yourself some more room as you twist. Breathing here. Nice full deep breaths. And then inhale, unwind, straightening the left leg, bend the right knee. Again, maybe move the right foot to the right, hugging that knee and sit up nice and tall. So you're doing a half a squat with the right leg. Left leg is acting as an anchor. Then for the twist, go ahead, our right foot moves closer in, lean back a little bit, give your back some room, some space, and then you can turn towards the right, breathing here. And then unwind, straighten both legs forward out in front of you, hands back behind you, sitting up nice and tall. Walk your hands forward, lift the low back out of the hips. If you need to bend the knees, bend the knees. Breathing wherever you're at. And then from here, if it works for you, cross the right leg in front of the left and just practice sitting up nice and tall here. So again, just noticing how much your spine has to work to sit up nice and tall. If you want to, you can grab your knees here instead here and pull on your knees with your hands to help you sit up nice and tall. And then if it works for you, switch the cross of the leg. Now, if you only could cross your legs one way, go ahead and just hold your legs in whatever direction works for you. Breathe. And then from here, go ahead, bring the soles of the feet together, knees apart. Again, hands back behind you, leaning back a little bit, pressing the feet into each other. Lift the low back up out of the hips, sitting up nice and tall. And again, if you want to walk the hands a bit forward here, you can. If it's comfortable for you to grab your shins and pull on your shins to sit up nice and tall, that's also another option. You're just doing what works for you. From here, you can slide the feet further forward. And if you want to take a really gentle forward fold, you can just take a gentle forward fold. And then go ahead and come back up to sitting. You can pick a side of cross leg that's easy for you, or some other sitting position if another sitting position is better. One that we haven't done today that works really well for some people but not so well for others is a low nil. So again, if you want to do something else and this is a comfortable, accessible position for you, you can do that. All I want you to do is someplace you feel comfortable, again, that you can sit up nice and tall. Now, you also might need to just sit on something. So whether you're sitting more in a cross-legged position or in a kneeling position, you might need something under your butt to sit up nice and tall, and that's fine. Grab something, stick it under your butt, sit up nice and tall. And just soften or close your eyes and feel the breath moving through you. And just notice what you feel. Notice how you feel. Part of yoga is in just cultivating deeper awareness with yourself and with the world around you. So just notice how you feel and what's going on. Honoring whatever that is. And that's it. That's our practice for today. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hope to see you again in the internets, and have a wonderful day.